The attention which is drawn to a perception or mental process through the energy of the perception or mental process, such as hearing a fire alarm or thinking about an absent loved one, is called spontaneous attention. It is the kind of attention animals lower than man in the evolutionary scale use almost exclusively, and also the kind man tends to habitually use. It gives rise to fantasy thinking, which has its use, but which also, through lack of critical discernment, is the source of most of our errors. The attention, on the other hand, which is focused in the manner decided upon after a selective appraisal of various possibilities, and in spite of the distracting stimuli of irrelevant sensations and desires, is called directed attention. Directed attention makes possible critical analysis and the separation of facts from the beliefs encouraged by desire. It gives rise to a form of thinking of which animals lower in the evolutionary scale than man are incapable, and which is the crowning glory of man's intellect. When the mental and electrical energy released from the tensions of a desire is unusually intense and of relative short duration, the emotions such as anger, terror, despair, triumph, or revenge is commonly called passion. If the mental and electrical energy released from the tensions of a desire is complex and indirect, the emotion, such as honor or patriotism, is called a sentiment. When the energy released from a desire tension is more moderate in intensity but of greater persistence, it is called a mood. And should the energy released from a particular type or desire tension become so habitual and continuous as to dominate the personality, it is called the temperament of the person. Why are there man-haters and woman-haters? It is because in every such instance the hater has met with disappointment in some member of the opposite sex. The whole generic concept of man or woman, as the case may be, consists of a composite image of experiences with individuals. Each experience adds to the quality of the generic concept according to its intensity. When grief of sufficient intensity caused by one member of the sex is added to the generic concept, the whole concept becomes dominated by pain. Every person of the sex which caused the grief is associated in the mind so closely with this painful image that because the one man or woman who caused the pain is hated, this hatred is transferred to all. Each organism is a collection of habit systems, and the significant thing is that once the energies of desires have established a channel of release, because to break a new path is painful, they resist the effort to make them express through another avenue for which as yet they have no precedent. A noted biologist says, if it were possible for a given period of time to compare in humanity, taken as a whole, the number of acts produced by voluntary attention with the total number of those produced without it, the ratio would be nearly a 0 to infinity. What is character upon which we so pride ourselves? It is the organization of the thought cells and the thought structures of our finer form which give rise to our habitual mode of thought and expresses outwardly as our habitual actions. What comes to any individual is attracted by the thought organization and the thought element composition of his astral body. It is not due to the planets. The planets do furnish the energy with which the thought cells work, but the kind of work done by the planetary energy thus utilized is entirely determined by the desires of the thought cells and the stellar organizations. That is, we build our fortune as well as our abilities through our experiences and how we mentally react to them. If we want a different kind of fortune, the only way we can get it is to build into the thought cell compounds and structures of the astral body such desires as will attract it. Much of the old-time religion and much of the old-time parental training given the young were based on fear. The emotion of fear is painful. It conditions the thought cells with so much discord they work energetically to attract into the life disaster, and it releases adrenaline into the bloodstream as if an emergency were present, requiring a complete mobilization of the body's forces for getting away from the painful condition. In an occasional real emergency, the body can afford to prevent being destroyed, the disarrangement of its normal functions, and the presence of hormones in the bloodstream that are foreign to its normal welfare. But the same emergency chemicals, if present in the bloodstream too often, as effectually poison the individual as if the poison had reached his blood through being administered by an enemy in his food. Think of the thousands of invalids who owe their infirmity to nothing but the belief in a literal hell. Think of the innumerable maladies arising from the doctrine of eternal damnation. The licentiousness of ancient Rome through excess of sensual emotion no doubt developed many malignant maladies, but as a student of the reaction of the endocrine glands to painful images, I'm sure they brought fewer maladies than the long-faced doctrine that to be happy is to be evil. It has been taught that if certain primitive desires are permitted to express in action, that the deific parent will become violently angry and mete out severe punishment. Commandments have thus been given imposed by a divine being who will take summary vengeance upon all who break them. A lie is not conditioned by its effect upon society and its reaction upon the welfare of the liar, but is associated with some superhuman being who is jealous and demands, "Thou shalt not lie." And so it is with all the other ideas of morality. They are not conditioned by their association with some natural law, but by their association with some arbitrarily imposed command that seems to deprive mankind of what otherwise would be a pleasure. Thus is built up the desire not to refrain from sin, but to escape the punishment imposed by the heavenly parent.